Trying to speak and have questions, would you come up to the microphone, please? State your name and your residence, please. Anyone like to speak or make a... Oh, Tim, do you want to make a brief presentation about the uses, or would you like me to do that?
I could if you like,
Okay.
just to assist in what the rezoning application was, because the application did start at the planning board and goes with a recommendation to the town board from there, because the town board is the one that makes decisions on rezonings. So, and since I go to both meetings, I could facilitate that communication back and forth. So the planning board did review this zoning application, rezoning application. And as you can see on the screen up there, it's for the lot on the southeast corner of Lockport Road and Ward. It's a fairly small lot. It's about 0.8 acres of land. The lot, as you can see right now, is currently zoned R1, and everything around it you can see is R1. That same kind of yellow shading is R1. That green on the very left side begins an AR zone, which is agricultural residential. So what the applicant wishes to rezone this residential lot to is a restricted commercial lot, or RC. Typically, a term you would see associated with this is people would call out spot zoning. Spot zoning is typically when you introduce a zone where there is not another similar zone in the adjacent area. However, the difference with this lot is that this whole intersection is actually called out in the town's comprehensive master plan as to potentially be rezoned at some point in the future to RC, which is the restricted commercial. So this proposed rezoning is not spot zoning, as it's actually in accordance with the town's comprehensive master plan. RC, restricted commercial, does not have all the options available as a full commercial zone lot. This is for smaller types of businesses, and if you like, I actually pulled this up on from our town code. It's other lower developed residential lots could build there, like an R3, R2, R1, telephone exchanges, a real estate or insurance office, art or dance or music or photographic studio, optician, I should have my glasses on, or optometrist, meeting rooms for small clubs, and medical offices. So there's no of the normal types of commercial activities that you see that would be allowed on that particular lot due to its nature in the RC zoning.
I had some calls today that were concerned about commercial activity going in there related to like a Tim Hortons, things like that. And with the restricted commercial zoning, again, it's more suited as a professional offices, dentists, insurance offices, things like that. So it isn't a full commercial zone. It's a restricted commercial or residential commercial. There could be a mixed use there. There could be a residence and also an office, things like that.
Right. The nature of the development on the lot will be really governed by how big the lot is. Yep. And the setbacks that are required, because both Lockport's a county road and Ward is a state road. They actually have a minimum of a 65-foot front setback, so there's 65 setback from both those sides, and a minimum rear yards of 20 foot. So there's only about 100 by 100 foot area that can actually be built on that lot. So it'll limit the size of what could potentially go in.
The other comment is that even if they were going to change the use to an insurance office or whatever, it still would have to go through the site plan review process at the planning board level to make sure there's adequate parking, signage, etc. So it's not just something that's rezoned RC and away they go. It still would have to come back for a site plan review.
That's all I had.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? If they do, come on down, sir, and your name and address, please. How you doing? Okay.
Kind of explain what restricted commercial is. Once it's all restricted commercial, how easy is it to go to commercial?
Very difficult, and I'll say this, that as Tim had mentioned before, the town has a comprehensive master plan. And if they had come in this without the master plan reflecting on a restricted commercial, it would have been a spot zoning. It would have been impossible for them to come in and apply. So in order to go to a full commercial zoning or even a heavier zoning, it would still have to come back to the town. So as it is now, as a restricted commercial, and if you'd like to stop, the building department has a list of all the specific uses, but it's basically professional offices, things like that. So in order to make it even more commercial, again, the fact it doesn't reflect on the master plan would be very difficult. Well, it probably won't, because if you take a look at that corner, you have the building right across the street from it, which is also purchased by a tri-community, and that's also they're looking to put some offices in there in the future. You've got the telephone exchange right across from it. So the town reflected on that corner being restricted commercial or professional offices quite some time ago. And that's why when the applicant came in for the restricted commercial zoning, that's why they're here tonight. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult to come here. We can ask the applicants if they would. I don't know if. Yeah. Well, it could be. I haven't talked with them, but they're welcome to comment on also when you're done. So we'll ask them. Okay.
Don, one thing to add to that too is that residential is allowed in an RC. So if they just wanted to build another house there, they could. What's actually there is a multi-family house right now. I believe there's 2 residents in there, and the zoning is R1. So it's already a non-conforming existing use because I believe it was a duplex before we had the zoning in place. So it's called a existing non-conforming use. So if somebody wanted to tear that down and build something new, they would only be able to build an R1, a single-family residential house. With it being zoned as RC, they could build a single-family residential or a duplex or a multifamily residential there. R1, R2, and 3 are all allowed in an RC zone as well.
But just remember that if somebody wanted to do something else than what's there now, they would still have to comply with the regulations as they are today. So setback would have to be 65 feet on the state and county road, which would be almost impossible. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Huchecki, I know you folks are the applicants. Is there any intended use for it at this time? Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Come on down, sir. Okay. Let me just address that if I could. It isn't just sir, over here. It's not just a whim. The town has reflected that whole corner as restricted commercial many years ago when they did the master plan. So when these folks came to apply for restricted commercial zoning, it fit the town's master plan. So it wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction to say, okay, let's do a restricted commercial. The town had planned on that restricted commercial quite some time ago, long before I was around. Years. I'm sorry? Well, I can't speak for the applicant, but I would guess that if you have a house and someone wants to buy it as restricted commercial, it opens up some new avenues where you could have a mixed use, where you can have a house with a dentist's office or an insurance office, which makes the property more valuable. And again, I'm not speaking for the applicants, but it makes sense to me. I'm sorry again? I don't think there's an advantage to the residents, but I also don't think there's a disadvantage to the residents. So restricted commercial, again, is for residential, and restricted commercial, which again would be an office, dentist's office, doctor's office, something professional. There won't be a noise impact. It still would have to go through site plan review through the planning board. So I don't see a negative impact, and that's my opinion. I can't speak for the board. Well, if you have a doctor's office or a dentist's office, I can't believe the impact. And again, the planning board could ask for a traffic study, depending on the use. That's all part of the site plan review process. But I can't believe that a doctor's office or a dentist's office or an attorney's office would have a huge impact on the traffic that we have there now. Well, again, it's not a creeping zoning change. This has been in the master plan for how many years, Tim?
The map was from 2000, is when it was last updated, and actually that's a shot on the screen. It's even more than just that one single parcel on the bottom right. And in fact, on the upper left-hand corner, that's where the telephone exchange is now, and that's actually an existing non-conforming use in a residential zone, but would be an allowable use in an RC zone. So
Sure.
it's kind of like the nature that intersection is taking on. I'm not representing anyone except for the planning board, explaining what this is.
All right, certainly. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
You've addressed a few of the issues that I had questions about, but I just wanted to express mine and my wife's feelings toward any type of commercial. And we bought the home that we live in now in 2014. We bought it as a strictly residential.
Sure.
Any extra traffic, even if it is just in and out, we do have a backup of traffic at that intersection.
Sure.
As it is, they did, as you, I'm sure, are fully aware, they increased the size of that intersection 2 years ago. It made a little bit of an impact. It helped slightly, but we still have a big backup.
Yeah.
My wife's concern is traffic pulling in and out. Would there be a restriction for no left turn pulling out onto Lockport Road, or no left turn out onto
You know, that's
Ward Road?
it's a good thought, and again, it does go to the planning board. I mean, I'm sure they can, when it does come to the planning board, if and when that time comes, the planning board has the ability to make a right turn only out onto Lockport Road. I mean, there's all kinds of things they can place on the applicant to continue to keep that traffic moving, and that's a good point.
We have young teenage kids, and there are smaller
Sure.
kids in the area.
Yep.
We were really concerned with the increase in
Sure.
traffic.
Yeah.
If I could add some input to that, Lockport Road is a county road,
Right.
so any kind of access from Lockport Road would have to be reviewed and approved and permitted by the Niagara County DPW. Ward Road is a state road, so any
State
new
too.
access to that is reviewed and approved by the DOT.
With the state on that?
The planning board would certainly coordinate their concerns with
Yeah.
them, but it's usually those two entities, or if there's any driveway proposed on there, they're gonna want it as far away from the intersection as possible, so
Absolutely.
there won't be driveways right onto that intersection going out into the traffic. They'll probably be at the farthest extent.
There were restrictions as to what could go in there.
Right.
Yes, sir.
What would prevent, say, a small bakery, something of that nature, to where we would be impacted by cooking smell?
Yeah, I don't know whether that would be permitted in restricted commercial. I don't know, is Brian here? Brian, would that be permitted in a bakery or something like that? That's more of a commercial use, isn't it? Yeah.
Some of the things we did research a little online, and I understand we're not gonna see it's important,
Sure.
but something that, we love the agricultural smell,
Yeah.
we love the fact that it is
Yeah.
residential, that's one of the reasons why we bought out there.
Yeah.
I understand the doctor's office, and I wouldn't want to prevent anyone from ever doing any kind of thing,
Mhm.
but something that would take away from our quality of life,
Sure.
sitting out on our deck on a nice summer night, to have to put up with a grease trap smell or
Yeah.
a bakery.
Well, a restaurant wouldn't be permitted, and I'm assuming, and I don't know what the specifics are, but I can't imagine that a bakery would be permitted because essentially that is a commercial activity. The RC, and if you'd like to stop at the building department, they can give you a list of the permitted uses there, but I think you'll see it's professional uses. Yeah, you can get it online also, but you'll see that it's not intended for commercial use at all. So you're not going to have retail sales or anything. It's going to be an office or something similar, which really should have no impact. And the fact is, typically the offices are closed at 4 or 5 o'clock anyway, so that's something the planning board would all consider, and in fact the county and the state would all be involved with any potential business that may come in there. Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second.